Today I'm going to be working on a 2010 Mini Cooper S convertible. The truth. Alright, I got a new thermostat for the Mini Cooper. This is the part number for it. Obviously Dorman brand. So let's get it installed on the Cooper. We're going to have to take off this air intake pipe. I'm going to move this little breather pipe right here as well. And because it's basically down there, so we have to access that. So let's get started by taking this off. So I'm basically just going to take off this band clamp right here and this one right here to start with, and probably this one as well, and get this pipe off just so I can get this big plastic pipe out of the way. I'm also going to remove this little sensor right there too, but let's get this guy out of the way. Just kind of squeeze down on that part right there and pulls off, just to kind of get it out of the way. I don't know where I'm going to tuck it at the moment. Get this guy off of here. Alright, now let's go ahead and set this aside. Now I did leave this overnight, so I did put like Ziploc bags and then threw a rubber band around these, just so no junk and debris would accidentally fall into either the turbo or through this breather pipe and get into the head. But next, we're going to be using a T20 bit. If I got this going the right way, we're going to be removing the air, or the upper part of the air intake box. And once we get all these screws out, I think there's 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're also going to need to disconnect this sensor right here. So we'll go ahead and do that really quick while I've got on camera. There it goes. Just going to get that out of the way for a minute. And we're going to finish taking out these 3, and I already did that one. Now we're going to be taking off a bunch of these sensors. There's a few of them scattered around the car. There's some down there, some down there. What I like to do is I like to make marks on them. So I gave this one 1 dot and 1 dot, just kind of keep track of where this one goes. When I go to like take off this one down here, I'll probably give it like 2 dots and then 2 dots on the actual sensor side itself, way over there. Just kind of keep things straight. And then any other ones, maybe I'll do like 3 dots or a dash or 2 dashes or whatever. But just going to match up the same kind of configuration on both sides. This one's pretty unique enough. I'm not really going to. And this one, I might mark just to be on the safe side. I'll probably give it a 2 dots or something, or 3 dots, whatever. And then put the same on the other side of the plug. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and start disconnecting these little sensors. Just going to take off this little clip right here that holds the wires down. It just kind of clips onto this little piece of plastic. And there'll be another one right here. Here's the other one right here. I'm going to take that guy off too. You can just kind of rotate them around so they face up. That way they don't accidentally clip back down. Now for this sensor right here, I'm going to use my pick. Just kind of lift up on the tab and pull back towards me. Just like that, to get that sensor out of there. And now that it's out and it's easier to get to, I'm going to go ahead and mark it with a couple marks. Now behind that first sensor is actually a second sensor right here, which we're also going to be taking off. Just got to kind of get up under here. See if I can do it on camera. There it goes. Pop that bad boy off too. Next, it's going to be a couple of vacuum lines. There's this one right here. And then the other one is right down here. Usually it's easier to get a pick up underneath and kind of break the seal, and then you can just pull them off. And again, same with this one. I'm just going to get my pick in there. Just kind of try not to mess up the rubber. If you do, you're going to be replacing a whole a whole line. So it's best not to mess it up. But, you know, accidents do happen sometimes. But just try your best. There we go. Now I got both those lines off. I'm just going to kind of pull them out and get them kind of tucked out of the way for now. We're going to be taking a few more things off. I'll show you here in just a second. So next I'm going to be taking off the cool air intake pipe that feeds into the bottom of the air filter over here. I'm going to take it off from right here at this joint. So there's a couple tabs. I'm just going to get up under there with a screwdriver. I don't know how well I can show you. Get up under there with a screwdriver. We're just going to kind of pop them free and just pull this back a little bit. And then, alright, and when we get out here, basically just going to pop it free as it separates right inside this little groove here. I don't know how you can see it. My shadow's casting. We're just going to pop it free from this, I don't even know what you call that, the beveled side here. So, I'll show you all that here in just a second. Alright, had to set the camera down for a minute because I had to use two hands on that one, but did pop it free. Let's go ahead and start working on this other end now. There it goes. So once I got the screwdriver kind of break it free, I just pulled this way and I just kind of popped free. Now, to get it all the way out, just kind of spin it and it comes right out of there. Alright, now we've got access to two more plugs. One of them's right down here. The other one's right here. We're going to go ahead and take those off. And just because of the position they're in, I'll probably only mark this one down here with my paint marker. That way, this one will have nothing on it, and this one will have marks on it. But because they're both coming out of the back side of this kind of wiring harness we got going on here, it shouldn't be hard to get those two mixed up. Now, this plug right here is a real pain in the butt. You got to squeeze it from both sides. Like, it's got these little tabs on both ends, so you got to squeeze them both. It's a pain because the one tab is on the way backside back here, and the other one's right up front, so that one's easy to get to. It's just a back one. And again, you got to squeeze them at the same time and then pull down. Alright, now that we got this wiring harness assembly all disattached from everything, and those vacuum lines are up out of the way, this line's up out of the way, this one's up out of the way, we're going to lift up on this plastic harness. There we go. And we can kind of maneuver that up out of the way because our thermostat is right down in there. I don't know how well it's going to focus, but that's it right down there. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to jack the car up. And once it's up on some jack stands, we're going to crack the coolant line that runs right underneath the radiator here and drain the coolant into a clean bucket, because we're going to start disconnecting these coolant lines for the actual thermostat itself. That's why we needed this harness up out of the way so we can get down up in here and start disconnecting things. Alright, so next thing we need to do is get the front end of this car up in the air. So let's go ahead and get the front on some jack stands. Alright, so now that it's up in the air, we're going to go ahead and disconnect this coupler right here. I like taking this side off, it's a little bit easier. So you get the rubber hose, plastic coupler, and then the other rubber hose. We're going to be taking this clamp off right here and just very slowly letting it drip down into our drip tray. I'm not sure how much is going to come out, probably a couple gallons. So I may have to empty this into a bigger container and then keep emptying. But we'll see here in just a minute. Also, go ahead and remove your reservoir cap. Just kind of releases some air pressure. That way it flows better out the bottom. But we're going to let that keep flowing for a little while. I would let it gush, but my pan isn't quite big enough, so I'm kind of worried that it'll overflow. So we're just going to let it drain and go from there. See you in just a second on your time, but might be a few minutes on my time. All right, now that it's done dripping, I'm going to close up the hose, if I can get a video of it. Right there. I'm going to close up the hose, and I'm going to put the hose clamp back on just so I don't have to crawl under here later. Alright, I took out all the coolant that was in that bucket, but I'm going to leave it up underneath the car, because when we start taking these hoses off, like this one, and the others, it will probably drip some more coolant, so I'm just going to keep it under there just to catch anything else that drips down. Alright, so now we're going to be taking off these hose clamps, and hopefully these hoses come off without a problem. I might have to get a pick on the back side of them, just going to break them loose, but there's 1, 2, 3, if it'll focus, 3 and 4. I believe that's the only 4 we got to do, but we'll find out for sure. But yeah, we're going to take the hose clamps off, break those hoses loose on all 4 of those. So right before I take those hoses off, just want to make sure we keep our drip pan underneath here. I may have to maneuver it around wherever you need it, but it will be dripping a bit. So just going to get this ready. Now it does matter the placement on these hoses, so just like I did with the wires, I'm going to go ahead and put an X on the leftmost ones. That way I know the left one over here goes on the left side with the X, and the left one over there has the X, so it goes on the most left side. It seems kind of obvious, but you know, it keeps me thinking straight and it might help you as well. And this is why we kept the drip pan down there. I'm going to use a new one as a reference, but right back down in here, there's going to be a clip. It's going to be very similar to this style. It's just going to be clipping this guy on. It's extremely hard to see, but it's way down up in here. So you could take that little intake pipe off right there and have a little bit better access to seeing it, but it's not necessary. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there probably with either a screwdriver or my hand and pop that clip out. I just wanted to show you on the new one where that clip would be, because this thing kind of sits in there like that, so it runs down here. And there it is. Like I said, it just kind of clips on like that. All right, we're going to use a new one as a reference again, because some of these are really hard to see. There are 3 bolts holding this thing in. There's going to be one down here, one up here, and then one right over here between that really weird angle where you had to get the clip off. So let's go ahead and start getting those off. So I'm going to be using a combination of long sockets, short sockets, extensions, swivel heads, everything like that. But they're all going to be 10 millimeter. Do your best not to drop these guys because it's going to be extremely hard to find down in this tight engine bay. Alright, so I just found out I missed a hose. I took off these 4 right up here. I totally missed this one right down below. So let's go ahead and take that one off really quick. You can sort of see it down up in here. It runs with this metal pipe right here, and then it goes down. Really hard to get my hand down there. But we can get that clamp off, and we can work that hose off really quick. But right down in here. Again, as a reference, I always like to use the new part. But yeah, it's this one right down here. Let's get that off really quick before we take these other 2 bolts out. Now I did take out the 8mm bolt holding this guy in, and I removed the hose off this side. I just kind of wiggled it up out of the way just to give myself a little bit more room to work down in here. It isn't quite necessary, but it does help a lot. Alright, so I'm not going to lie. This hose right here, it has been a pain in my butt, to put it nicely, to get this hose clamp to move all the way up to where it is from where it was. It's not just a weird angle to get to, it's also getting past that little elbow bend there. And yeah, it has not been fun. But now that it's off, I'm going to get the pick on the back side over there and just going to break it loose from the thermostat itself. Alright, well I broke the seal free around that hose, but I don't have a whole lot of room to be able to pull it off of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it on for right now, and when I take all the bolts out of the thermostat and pull the thermostat out, that's when I'll pop that hose all the way off. Alright, so now all of our bolts are out, and that one hose is the only thing left connected. I'm going to go ahead and kind of pop it free, wiggle it out, and kind of hold on to that hose at the same time as I pull it out. So just something else, make sure that bucket is in a good place. I had a bunch of coolant go that way across the engine and down, and I had it straight underneath here, so just kind of be cautious of where you put your bucket, and yeah. But now, let's get our thermostat all the way out of there. There it goes. And there we go. Got our old thermostat out. Alright, do a really quick side-by-side with our old one and our new one. Things you always want to check for is obviously the same amount of hoses, connections. I have checked this one already. It is the same number. Something else you want to check is this pin connection right here. Mine is a 2-wire. I think some of them are 3 wires, so you just want to make sure you get the right one before you try and install it on the car. Other than that, everything looks pretty good. My O-ring did come out, so did this O-ring, so that's always a good thing. Make sure they didn't stay on the engine itself. But other than that, let's go ahead and get this one going in the car. I am going to put a little bit of oil on the outside of this O-ring, just so when it pops into place, it doesn't bind up here or anything like that. The oil helps kind of just slide it in. Just a touch of oil isn't going to hurt anything. You definitely don't want to just super lube it up either, but just a touch, just to help with lubrication. So let's go do that really quick. Now, because this hose down here was fighting me on the way off with the old one, as I put this one in, I'm going to be trying to slide that one on at the same time, and then I'll deal with the other hoses after. So I'm just going to kind of maneuver this guy into position, and then like I said, I'm going to be fighting with that hose to get it onto here. It's this hose right down here. Yeah, and then make sure this guy gets in its mating hole down there as well. Well, nothing on this car is ever easy because this pipe right here, where the white O-ring, focus, where the white O-ring connects up into this pipe, it is super loose when I wiggle it. Unfortunately, it connects to, looks like the water pump. And to get to the water pump, I've got to take the intake off because it connects right down in here. I don't know if I can show you on camera, but the other end of that hose goes right down in there, and that's why it had so much coolant spill out this side underneath, because that hose popped off. So I've got to take this whole intake off and try and get back up in there and reconnect that pipe so I can connect the thermostat to that pipe as well. So lucky me, gotta love the Mini Cooper and how little room there is to work with anything. So I have to get down up in there. So hopefully you don't have the same problem. If you do, yeah, I would say take the intake off and go from there. That's where I'm going to start. I may or may not show me doing all that work. I may show you after I get the intake off and everything like that. But yeah, fun times. Well, as you can see, I took the intake off, and the good times just keep getting better with this car. The crossover pipe, which runs pretty much like this, up underneath the intake and goes all the way to the water pump, it's broken. And usually an O-ring that sits in here as well, pretty much right between those little lips there. But luckily, all mine came out together. But yeah, need a new one of these now too. So lucky me, I got to go source one of these. So it'll be only a few seconds in your time, but it might be a few days in my time to get one of these. I may have to order off Amazon or through Mini, or maybe one of my local auto parts stores will have it, but highly doubt it. But yay, something else that's broken. So I guess good thing I'm finding it now while I'm already up in here with everything taken apart. But you'll see the new one here in just a moment. Alright, it's a new day, and the part finally came in. The crossover pipe for the Mini Cooper actually goes that way across the car. But here is the part number. I'll link it down in the description below of where I got it on Amazon. But let's go ahead and get this thing put on the Mini. Now this new crossover pipe does come with a new little clip for this side, but so does my thermostat, so I'll just hold on to this one for safekeeping. Now, let's go ahead and fish this guy through and plug it up into our water pump. I did put some lubrication on the end of this O-ring here, just kind of help slide it in as I go. Alright, I got it in. It did take me some fighting, but I was able to get it. So if you look down right in here, you can see where the water pump is, and you can just kind of align it up the whole way. This is the old pipe, but it sits like this in there. So it's going to kind of go along and then dip down, and then this is where it meets up with the water pump. So pretty much once I got it lined up in there, I put the palm of my hand on this end and pushed as hard as I could, and you'll feel it kind of seat down in there. While at the same time I was looking down there with my flashlight. So just kind of push really hard. Try not to like push like this, because you might break this area here. Then you'll be buying yourself a new one of these. So if you just flat hand it, it disperses your pressure all the way around. Alright, now we can start installing our new thermostat onto that pipe, and then mate it up with the block of the car here. Alright, so on the bottom side of the thermostat, there's that one little hose. I went and ahead and connected it to the thermostat as I was putting it in place, and then made sure it connected to the new crossover pipe as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start putting my bolts on the thermostat. All right, next we're gonna put our little retaining clip right there on where the thermostat pipe meets our crossover pipe. And there it is on the pipe. All right, so once all those bolts are good and tight and that clip is on the crossover pipe of ours, we can go ahead and start putting all these hoses back on to the thermostat. So the first one I'm going to start with is this little guy down here. Like I said, I did put the hose on the thermostat already, but I'm going to go ahead and get the clamp all the way over there. Alright, now let's start getting our other hoses in place. Remember, the X's go on the left. Remember, it's the same for back here. Our X is going to go on the left pipe. Do make sure you're pushing your hose all the way up on the hard plastic pipe as well. That goes for both of them. Now you can't really see the top one too well. But see, I need to push it more on there. And that one definitely needs to come more on there. There you go. Now you can see both of them are all the way on. Now let's get those clamps on there. Now what I did notice with this bottom pipe, or I guess the pipe on the right, whichever direction you're looking at, just make sure this clamp is out of the way of this electrical plug right here. Because I did have it like right in front here and it was blocking it, so I just squeezed it, shifted it upwards, but now I can easily get to this plug. Alright, at this point I should be good to put my coolant reservoir back into place. So I'm going to get it right in here. It's got a little pin on the bottom down here that fits into a little plug. And at the same time, these two little clips on top snap into place, just like that. Just gonna keep the cap on for now, just to keep debris and stuff out of there. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and be putting my air filter box back in place back here. And then I'll be hooking the piping up, which you can see over here, back to it as well. Alright, now that I got my reservoir all secured and all my hoses secured, I'm going to go ahead and start pouring in some coolant. And while I do this, I'm actually going to be opening up the screw on the thermostat to let out any kind of air in the system as well. Now the bleed screw is located right here. So we're going to hit it with a Phillips screwdriver and just kind of open it up to let some of the air out of the system. Now I'm going to go back and forth between filling and bleeding the air out. You could leave it open, but I'm trying not to make a big mess whenever the coolant gets high enough. So I'm just going to kind of go back and forth. Once you open the bleed screw, you'll be able to hear it, and the coolant level in your reservoir just starts to drop automatically. All right, so I've got my catch pan set up down below. I filled my reservoir up just a bit higher. I started to get some coolant coming out of the bleed port. So I'm going to bleed it again, let just straight coolant come out of there, close it off, and then we'll re-bleed it again once the car is running and the heater core is going. All right, for now, I'm done filling it up. So I'm going to go ahead and take my funnel out. I'm just going to throw the cap on just to keep any kind of dirt and debris out of there. There we go. But I did overfill it a bit, just because I know I'm going to be re-bleeding it here shortly whenever the car is actually running. But in the meantime, let's get our vacuum lines reconnected down here and put the plugs back where they belong. Now before, I had put marks on some of these plugs. See, like there's a line there. So I'm going to start matching them up to whichever connections they go to. I got a few on this side. I got a couple down in here. And, well, this one goes to the air intake. You can't really see it from that angle. This one goes to the air intake. I think it's the throttle valve or the mass airflow, whichever one it is. Pretty sure it's mass airflow, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But either way, we'll start plugging stuff in that we can and go from there. And then I'm going to also be clipping this wiring harness back onto the metal bracket that it goes to right back in here. It's not super necessary, but it does keep the bracket from moving around, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So one slight problem I've run into is this hose clamp right here, where my finger's at. It can't be facing up. It's got to be facing to the right side. This wiring harness won't sit properly with it facing straight up. It bumps right into it down here. So I'm going to move that really quick, get it out of the way. All right, now I got this thing all the way down. Also, don't forget there's two plugs back here. There's one on the back side of this silver block, and the other one goes on the very bottom side of the thermostat down here. Alright, next our two vacuum lines. Going to run across the top of the electrical connections here and pretty much down underneath here. Maybe if I can get them to route the proper way. Because the one vacuum line goes right down below the turbo. Just going to press this onto mating port. If I can get it all the way on there. Yeah, there we go. The other one hooks to this little brass fitting right down in here. Alright, now we're going to start running our cold intake pipe. It just pretty much sits right down in here. You do have to get it underneath this wire loom. So I'm just going to kind of route it this way. Might have to twist it and turn it a bit. But I am going to get it right into place. Remember, it snaps into place right up here to where it meets up with the where the air filter sits in that housing. And then also down on this end, it fits up to that little hole right here in the bumper. So next we're going to be starting to put our intake back together. I'm going to first secure down the airbox up here. Then I'm going to run this pipe to the turbo. I'm just going to have it sitting up. And then we'll be connecting the top of the airbox to this pipe. Also, don't forget to clip down these little guys. They just fit the wiring harness and they just kind of snap into place. Don't forget about this breather line as well, and some of our other connections. Then this one goes on our main intake we're about to put on here in just a second. Now it's just got these little locking tabs on the back side. We're going to secure in back here. And then it's got the 4 bolts across the front. We're going to put in right up front here. Remember, all 4 of these guys are the little Torx bit we were using earlier. And finally, don't forget to plug in this sensor, and we're going to be tightening up this clamp right here and the one next to the turbo. Also, don't forget about this little clamp right here. Now, I do like to take a look underneath the car, make sure we're not dripping anything. I don't see any drips. If you had a coolant line loose or something, it would definitely be dripping right now, just because of the head pressure we put on the coolant system itself. Also, don't forget to take your tray out, because we're about to lower the car down. Alright, now with the car running, we're going to want it on defrost, highest temp you can go. We're going to blast the fan. I'm going to go ahead and roll down the windows too, just so it doesn't get super hot inside the car. We're going to be checking the vents to make sure it's heating up properly. When it starts heating up, we're going to go ahead and crack that bleed screw. Alright, so the air's getting a little warm, but it's not terribly warm yet, so we're going to crack open the thermostat and let any kind of coolant come out. What we're looking for when we're doing this is straight coolant coming out. It's really hard to see, but it's right down there. We're going to see if straight coolant's going to come out and get as much air as we can out of the system at the same time. You do want to make sure your reservoir doesn't get too low when we're doing this either. But I closed it back up. I'm going to let it sit for a little while, build up some more heat, and we'll do it again a couple more times. I am keeping an eye on my engine temperature here as well. It is in Celsius, so I go into Google and I just kind of convert it to Fahrenheit every time it changes, just to see when it's supposed to be at. Typically cars run about 180 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, so we're just going to keep an eye on that, just make sure we don't overheat. Now, I was looking it up on Google. The thermostat usually opens up at about 93 degrees Celsius, which is like, I think it's like just at 190 degrees, give or take. So yeah, we're gonna be waiting a little while for the thermostat to fully open, but when it does, we'll try and bleed the system a couple more times once that happens. All right, so I bled it a few times and haven't gotten any more air out of it. I'm gonna take it around the block now and just be keeping an eye on the temperature. I haven't noticed any cycles of like hot and cold air coming in and out, but I am going to bring my screwdriver and flashlight with me just in case I need to bleed it while I'm on the road, just as a precaution. But yeah, I'm going to take it for a test drive really quick. So I had it up to 87, just cruising around the neighborhood, so it's a bit better. It's still not when the internet says it should open the thermostat and everything, but at least it's getting up to temp. It is like extremely hot coming out of the vents here, so that's always a good sign. I just pulled over, checked everything again. So far so good. Coolant's not boiling. I cracked the bleeder. I still have no air coming out, it's just straight coolant. So I'm gonna keep going for a little while more and just keep an eye on things. So I was able to get it up to about 99, 100 degrees Celsius, which is within range. I'll put a screenshot of the Google search I did. So it's still running good. It seems to be circulating temperature like it should. Even sitting here, it's cooled off. So the thermostat is opening and closing. Haven't noticed any leaks. And every time I crack the bleeder screw, just coolant comes out. I don't see any air coming out. So looks like we're doing good. I'll probably check on it again tomorrow. I'll let it sit overnight and just check on things again. These little minis slash BMWs are kind of finicky about their coolant systems, so rather not push it too hard. Just double check, triple check, kind of everything. So one kind of final thing, any coolant that was on the ground, whenever you were bleeding out the system, make sure you dilute it a lot. You wouldn't want any animals to be drinking it or anything like that and get sick and die. So yeah, just run your hose over it a bit, or a bucket of water, whatever you got. Just kind of get all the coolant to wash away. Well, if you have any questions or comments, put them down in the comment section below and I'll try and answer them as soon as I can. If you like the music that was in the background of any of these videos, I'll put a link in the description to the artist's SoundCloud.